Hi, I'm ReveloGM and welcome back to Meet the Monster. This week we're covering the Viper, another monster that feels classic like giant spiders and skeletons, but maybe isn't. It's just a snake after all, we already have those. There are a few snakes across Pathfinder 2nd edition, so we'll be coming back here again and looking at some larger snakes, as well as some swarms in future. Let's start as always by having a look at what Monster Core says about the Viper. Each member of this family of venomous snakes has long, hinged fangs that inject potent venom into their prey. Different vipers inject different types of venom, which might result in paralysis, extreme pain and swelling, blood clotting, or even sudden stopping of the victim's heart. Monster Core has more general information about snakes as well. Snakes come in an array of forms, from jungle-dwelling constrictors that wrap around their prey to venomous vipers with deadly bites. Regardless, all snakes consume their prey whole by unhinging their jaws, and using powerful muscles to move the food down their throats into their stomachs. It also has details about eating habits, resources taken from snakes, and their place in mythology. Cool stuff! Alright, so Viper's stat line is going to sound a little bit familiar to the compy, with the perception score and hit points, having multiple movement types, and an attack that does poison damage on a fortitude save. But rest assured, there's a little bit more going on here, and not all the stats are the same. To learn about a Viper, that would be an animal, nature, check with DC 13, unspecific lore at DC 11, or specific lore at DC 8. The usual, and they have the animal and tiny traits. Multiple tiny creatures can occupy the same square, at least 4 can fit in a single square usually, though GM discretion of course, maybe more can fit, and tiny creatures can share a space occupied by a large creature as well. If a tiny creature's reach on its attacks is 0, it must share said space in order to actually attack the target. An animal tends to be a creature with a relatively low intelligence, usually not above a -4, it can't speak languages, and it can't be trained in intelligence-based skills. We've heard all that before, and this is similar as well. Perception are the same as a compy. Perception is +5, which is moderate, pretty much bog standard in the middle for a level -1 creature, and has low light vision, which means it can't see in complete darkness, but it's not impeded by low light. It has scent, imprecise as well, for out to 30 feet. To learn what an imprecise scent is, or an imprecise sense in general in Pathfinder 2nd edition, please check out the compy video. I'll try and have it pinned to the timecode as we go over precise sense there. We have new Meet the Monsters monthly, maybe even more than monthly, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss them. Vipers have a lot of skills comparative to the compy though. They have an acrobatics at +5, which is high, an athletics at +1, though +4 to climb, stealth also high at +5, and a +3 for survival. Snakes being slippery and slithery makes sense for their acrobatics, and they're stronger than you'd expect with all those muscles, so being trained even a little in athletics checks out too. Even if this is mostly for climbing and not for grapples, as they are very, very small. And then survival and stealth, they live in the wild and they need to hunt. The stat line also makes a lot of sense. -3 for strength, dex of +4, which is extreme for a level -1 creature, con of 0, intelligence -4, wisdom +1, charisma -2. They're tiny, so they're not strong, they're very dexterous, no real changes to con either way, they have low intelligence as an animal, slight wisdom for perception, and negative charisma. They're a snake. For defensive, they have an AC of 14, again, slap bang in the middle, a low fortitude save at +2, a reflex save of +7, which is pushing high, and a will save of +5, along with 8 hit points. That will save and hit points are both, again, slap bang in the middle. So not too hard to hit or to kill, but more of a problem if you've got multiple of them, and naturally reflex is their best. They do also have a defensive reaction though, it's called Slink. It's triggered when a creature ends its movement in an adjacent space to the Viper, or within the Viper space itself. The effect? The Viper strides, climbs, or swims up to 10 feet, or up to the relevant speed if that speed is less than 10 feet. It must end its movement in a location that isn't within 5 feet of a foe, and this movement doesn't trigger reactions. So this allows it to flee or disengage from potentially melee fighters who close in on it, as it probably wants to go after squishier targets. This is also useful as it will cost another action for any PCs to move again back to the Viper, meaning less actions can be used to attack it, and potentially certain abilities can't be used at all, as now 2 actions have been used and only 1 remains. And for going after squishier targets, they can manage that too. They aren't quite as fast as most player characters, but for something tiny and with no legs, they sure are quick. They have a 20 feet move speed, as well as a 20 feet climb speed and 20 feet swim speed. I think this is our first triple speed creature. Good luck getting away. At least they're not flying snakes, I suppose. For offense, it's a classic. Fangs. Well, I guess it's not bite, but it's basically not a bite. They have a +6 to attack, with follow-ups being on +2 and -2, and it has the Agile, Finesse, and Reach 0 feet traits. The damage is 1d8 -3 piercing plus Viper Venom. +6 is once again slap bang in the middle for an attack modifier. Agile means reduced multiple attack penalty from +5 to +4, and Finesse allows it to use Dex instead of Strength for its attacks, which again makes sense for something with a -3 Strength. And as we know, tiny creatures tend not to have much reach, so Reach 0. 1d8 -3 is pretty low damage. The maximum you can do is 5, and the average is 2, and a lot of the time you're going to be rolling 1, or rolling, 1 to 4, and getting 1, but that is in part because of the Viper Venom. This is a poison with a DC 16 Fortitude save, that's high for level -1, or else you take 1d8 poison damage. Max duration of 4 rounds, and then you again can check out the compy video for more about poisons. It's only got one stage, so it's 1d8 no matter what until you succeed or the 4 rounds pass. If you consistently fail this check for that 4 rounds, on average that's about 20 poison damage, which is more health than most first level creatures have. So, if you're a squishy backline with low fortitude and low con, that is quite dangerous. So it checks out that the main attack does a little less damage, plus its mouth is tiny. And that's the Viper. Very small, quick for its size, and good at crossing all manner of terrains. Or a fair few of them anyway. It can snake up on you. I should say sneak, but I spelt it wrong and accidentally made a pun. That's, sorry. Sorry? I'm not sorry. It can snake up on you, and bite squishy targets quite easily, likely inflicting Viper Venom on them, and then slinking away with its reaction if tougher PCs get too close, avoiding and possibly negating attacks to it. So what else could we do with them? Well, like quite a few things on the list, there are other similar creatures at high levels. Something I don't see, however, in the snake category, which might be as it's too far afield from just being a snake, so it's not there, but there's not a flying snake. So that's a very easy change. Give it a flying speed too. 20 feet, like its other speeds. Maybe it loses its swim speed as the wings impede that. Though it's more that their slithering motion allows them to swim faster, maybe not. Maybe it's a faster fly speed at like 30 feet, but it's slower with its other movements as a result, 15 feet or something instead of 20. The info on the Viper notes that their venom can also cause things like paralysis, so we could mess with the venom that they deal with, the poison damage and things like that. We could maybe give it a stage 2 that causes paralysis, paralyzed condition for a round, or does something else like enfeebled or drained. Some of the other snakes do things like that, but that's definitely something you could add in. You maybe change the max duration down to 3 if you're trying to keep this at level -1, maybe that's already too strong for paralysis. Obviously, you can add all manner of effects to the Viper to make it elemental or something like that. You could have a water one that's really fast swimmer, one that swims in lava or magma, or just in the earth, but at that point they're kind of their own monster. And then what can we use them for? Random encounters in jungles or forests, things like that. That's an easy one. Much like with the compies, you could have them in a battle with other lizard folk type creatures, or even more likely serpent folk. A smaller skirmishing enemy that delivers status effect damage and then slinks away. They could even be pets or familiars in such circles. And that high stealth, tiny size, and climb speed lends them to being used as attempted assassins as well, whilst being a little bit more plausible for just like a whoops, the snake got in, than a crawling hand. And there we are, that's the Viper. Have you used them in your games? What tweaks have you made to them? And do you have any funny stories about the results? Let me know all that down in the comments below. But that's all for now, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!